Work until midnight. You forgot our anniversary twice. You have not touched me, held me, wanted me in 3 years. I became a ghost in my own home, and you never even noticed. Adrian reached for her, desperate to bridge the chasm between them. Celeste, do not. She pulled away. You had years to choose me. You chose your empire instead. She fled upstairs, leaving Adrian alone with the devastating truth. He had everything money could buy and had carelessly discarded the only thing that actually mattered. That evening, Adrian cancelled meetings for the first time in memory. He sat in his study, reading through Damien's letters properly, forcing himself to understand what his wife had needed and never received. Celeste had been drowning in loneliness. She had reached out to a childhood friend because her husband offered nothing but cold silence. The emotional affair, because that was what it was, he admitted painfully, had been a lifeline for a woman starving for connection, and whose fault was that. Adrian found Celeste in their bedroom, packing a small suitcase with trembling hands. What are you doing? Fear pierced his chest. Visiting my sister for a few days. I need space to think. About leaving me. The words tasted like ash. Celeste paused, her back still turned. About whether there is anything left to save. Adrian crossed the room, turning her to face him. Her eyes were red from crying, her face bare of makeup, her hair loose around her shoulders. She had never looked more beautiful to him, or more lost. I was wrong. His voice broke on the admission. I was so focused on building something that I destroyed what I already had. You deserved better than I gave you. Pretty words. Her tone was exhausted. But words are easy, Adrian. You have always been better at grand gestures than daily devotion. Then teach me. He cradled her face in his hands, thumbs wiping her tears. Teach me how to be the husband you needed. Please, Celeste. Do not give up on us yet. Something flickered in her eyes, hope warring with self-protection. Why now? Because another man valued what you ignored? That is not love, Adrian. That is possession. Maybe it started as jealousy, he admitted. But reading those letters, seeing that portrait, it forced me to remember who you were when we met. Who you still are beneath the sadness I caused. I want that woman back. I want to deserve her. Celeste searched his face for sincerity. Whatever she found made her shoulders sag with exhausted uncertainty. I do not know if I can trust this transformation. You have hurt me for so long. Adrian pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her resistant frame until she softened slightly against him. Then let me prove it. One day at a time. Starting now. He held her while she cried, really held her, present and attentive for the first time in years. It was a beginning, fragile as spun glass, but beginnings were more than they had shared in far too long. Adrian could not let it rest. Damien Corso had touched something in Celeste that Adrian had neglected for years, and the jealousy gnawed at him despite his attempts at reconciliation. That he found Damien's studio in a converted warehouse downtown, industrial space transformed into artistic haven. Canvas stretched everywhere, oil paints perfuming the air, afternoon light streaming through enormous windows. Damien turned from his easel when Adrian entered. The artist was everything Adrian was not, creative rather than corporate, expressive rather than controlled, dressed in paint-splattered clothes rather than bespoke suits. Adrian Morrow. Damien set down his brush calmly. I wondered when you would come. Stay away from my wife. Adrian's hands clenched at his sides. Interesting. Damien leaned against his work table, utterly unintimidated. You ignore her for years, then suddenly remember she exists when someone else appreciates her. You crossed a line. Did I? Damien's expression hardened. I wrote letters to a lonely woman who reached out to an old friend because her husband could not be bothered to notice her suffering. I painted a portrait celebrating who she was before life diminished her. Where exactly is the transgression? Adrian stepped closer, towering over the artist. You want her. Of course I want her. Damien did not retreat. Celeste is extraordinary, intelligent, compassionate, creative. She has a gift for seeing beauty in broken things and believing people can change. She deserved someone who would cherish those qualities. The past tense stung. Deserved. She chose you. Damien shrugged. Years ago, she chose the stable millionaire over the struggling artist. I accepted her decision. But watching from afar as you systematically crushed her spirit, that I could not accept silently. Adrian felt the accusation land like physical blows. You do not know anything about our marriage. I know she cries herself to sleep. I know she stopped painting because you once dismissed her art as a cute hobby.
The chandelier cast fractured light across the dining room table where Celeste Morrow sat alone, pushing roasted vegetables around her plate. Across from her, an empty chair held a folded napkin and untouched silverware, place settings for a husband who never came home for dinner anymore. At 32, Celeste had become a ghost in her own mansion. She drifted through marble hallways and designer rooms like a beautiful apparition, seen by household staff but invisible to the man who had promised to cherish her. Adrian Morrow was worth $400 million. He owned textile factories across Southeast Asia, commercial real estate in 12 cities, and a wife he had forgotten existed. Celeste remembered when his eyes used to light up at her presence. During their courtship, Adrian had been attentive, passionate, overwhelming in his pursuit. He sent flowers daily, planned elaborate surprises, made love to her like she was precious and rare. She had married him believing that intensity would last forever. That was 5 years ago. The light in his eyes had dimmed gradually, replaced by distraction, then indifference, then complete emotional absence. Now Adrian looked through her when they occupied the same room, his mind perpetually elsewhere, on contracts, acquisitions, the endless hunger of empire building. The grandfather clock chimed 9. Adrian would not be home until midnight, if at all. Celeste excused herself from her solitary meal and climbed the sweeping staircase to her private sitting room, the only space in this enormous house that felt remotely hers. She curled into her reading chair, wrapping a cashmere throw around shoulders that ached for human touch. 3 years since Adrian had reached for her with desire. 3 years since he had asked about her day, her thoughts, her dreams. She had become furniture, expensive, decorative, and utterly ignored. The doorbell echoed through the foyer. Celeste frowned. They rarely received unexpected visitors. Minutes later, their housekeeper Margot appeared carrying an elegantly wrapped package. "This arrived for you, Mrs. Morrow. No return address, but there is a card." Celeste accepted the package with trembling fingers. She could not remember the last time she received anything personal. Birthday gifts from Adrian had devolved into impersonal jewelry selected by his secretary. She opened the card first. The handwriting made her heart stutter. "Celeste. I never forgot your face. I never stopped seeing the light in your eyes, even when you stopped seeing it yourself. This is how you looked the summer we were 17, before the world convinced you to become small. You deserve to be seen. Always. Damien." Damien Corso. Her childhood friend, her first innocent love, the boy who used to sketch her portrait while she read poetry aloud in her grandmother's garden. They had lost touch when her family moved across the country, reconnecting briefly through social media years ago. She knew he had become a successful artist, his paintings selling for extraordinary sums. With shaking hands, Celeste unwrapped the package. The portrait stole her breath completely. Damien had painted her at 17, wild curls escaping a messy braid, eyes bright with mischief and dreams, lips curved in a secret smile. But it was more than memory. He had captured something essential, some inner radiance that Celeste had forgotten she possessed. She looked alive in this painting. Vibrant. Worthy of attention. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she stared at the young woman she used to be, before she learned to shrink herself, before she married a man who made her feel invisible, before she forgot that she deserved to take up space. The front door opened downstairs. Adrian was home early for once, unusual enough to spark surprise. Heavy footsteps climbed the stairs. Celeste quickly wiped her tears, but she could not hide the portrait. It was too large, too present, too magnificent. Adrian appeared in her doorway, still wearing his charcoal suit, silver tie loosened slightly. At 38, he remained devastatingly handsome, dark hair, sharp jaw, gray eyes that used to smolder with want. Those eyes now fixed on the portrait with sudden intensity. "What is that?" His voice carried an edge Celeste had not heard in years. "A gift." She kept her tone neutral, though her pulse raced. "From an old friend." Adrian crossed the room in 3 strides, snatching the card from where it lay on her table. She watched his expression transform as he read, confusion becoming recognition, becoming something darker, more dangerous. Damien Corso. Adrian spoke the name like poison. "The artist. He painted this?" "Yes. We grew up together. He says he never forgot your face." Adrian's jaw tightened. "That you deserve to be seen. What exactly is your relationship with this man?" For the first time in 3 years, Adrian Morrow was actually looking at his wife. Not through her, at her. His gray eyes burned with. "I did not ignore you because I stopped caring. I ignored you because caring felt dangerous. Every time I wanted to reach for you, I heard my father's voice telling me that need was weakness." Adrian looked up at her with ravaged eyes. "I thought I was protecting myself. Instead, I destroyed the only thing that ever made me feel alive." Slowly, Celeste sat beside him on the bed. "You never told me about your father." "I never told anyone." His laugh was hollow. "Successful men do not discuss childhood trauma. We bury it beneath achievements and acquisitions and pretend we are fine." "You are not fine." "No." He took her hand tentatively. "I am terrified. Of losing you. Of becoming my father completely. Of feeling this much and not knowing how to handle it." Celeste studied his face, the man she had married, stripped of armor and pretense for the first time. She saw exhaustion, fear, desperate hope, and beneath it all, the love he had hidden so carefully that she stopped believing it existed. "I need you to choose me." Her voice trembled. "Not react to threats. Not perform gestures because you feel guilty. Actually choose me, every day, even when it is scary." "I choose you." Adrian pulled her close, pressing his forehead to hers. "I should have chosen you 1,000 times when I chose work instead. I should have held you when you lost our baby instead of sending flowers. I should have seen the light leaving your eyes and done everything possible to restore it." Their lips met tentatively, the first genuine kiss in years. Not passion born of jealousy or fear, but something more vulnerable. Rediscovery. The kiss deepened. Celeste's fingers tangled in his hair as years of longing finally found expression. Adrian's hands traced her curves reverently, relearning the body he had neglected. "I want to make love to my wife," he breathed against her throat. "Not because someone else wanted you. Because I have missed you desperately and been too broken to admit it." Celeste pulled back, searching his eyes for truth. Whatever she found made her decision. "Then show me. Show me I am worth choosing." They undressed each other slowly, rediscovering familiar territory transformed by emotional honesty. Adrian worshipped every inch of her skin, whispering apologies and promises against her flesh. Celeste surrendered to sensation she had forgotten her body could feel. Their lovemaking was tender and desperate, passionate and healing. Tears mingled with pleasure as walls finally crumbled completely. When release came, they clung to each other through the aftershocks, unwilling to let go. Afterward, tangled in rumpled sheets, Adrian held Celeste against his chest and spoke about his father, his fears, his desperate love that had twisted into neglect. She listened without judgment, understanding finally why her husband had become so cold. Understanding was not forgiveness. But it was the soil where forgiveness might eventually grow. 6 months transformed everything. Adrian reduced his work hours dramatically, promoting capable executives and delegating responsibilities he had hoarded for years. He came home for dinner every night, learned to cook Celeste's favorite meals, held her hand during movies she chose. He funded her dream, a gallery showcasing emerging artists from underprivileged backgrounds. Celeste threw herself into the project with passion Adrian had not witnessed since their courtship, her eyes regaining the brightness Damien had captured in his portrait. The opening night arrived with champagne, critics, collectors, and one unexpected guest. Damien Corso entered the gallery wearing paint-spattered boots beneath an expensive jacket, his presence drawing immediate attention. Celeste greeted him warmly while Adrian watched from across the room. "It is beautiful." Damien surveyed the space filled with bold, vibrant artwork. "You created something meaningful here. You reminded me I was capable of meaningful things." Celeste smiled. "Thank you for the portrait. It changed everything. It showed the truth." Damien glanced toward Adrian, who was approaching with deliberate calm. "Seems like someone finally learned to see it too." Adrian extended his hand. "Thank you for forcing me to wake up. I nearly lost everything because I forgot what mattered." Damien accepted the handshake. "Just remember, she deserves to be seen every day. Not just when someone else reminds you." "I will not forget again." After Damien departed, Adrian pulled Celeste close in the center of her gallery, surrounded by art celebrating overlooked beauty. "I owe that man a debt I can never repay," he murmured. "His gift forced me to confront what I had become. His gift reminded me who I was." Celeste leaned into her husband's embrace. "But you are the one who chose to change. That matters more." The evening became a triumph, art sold, connections formed, Celeste's vision validated by the community she had curated. Adrian stayed by her side throughout. "What do I do?" Adrian heard himself ask. "How do I fix what I broke?" Damien studied him for a long moment, perhaps seeing something redeemable beneath the arrogant exterior. "You cannot fix it. You can only begin again differently. Ask her about her dreams instead of assuming you know them. Listen when she speaks instead of waiting for silence. Touch her like she matters more than contracts and quarterly reports." He gestured toward the portrait of 17-year-old Celeste, which hung prominently in the studio. "That girl believed she could change the world through beauty. Your wife still has that capacity, she has just forgotten. Remind her. And maybe, if you are very fortunate, she will remind you why you fell in love with her in the first place." Adrian left the studio with Damien's words echoing in his mind. He drove to the cemetery where Celeste's mother was buried, finding his wife exactly where Damien had said she would be, kneeling before a modest headstone, speaking softly to stone that could not answer that he knelt beside her without speaking. Celeste startled, then stared at him with undisguised shock. "How did you know I would be here?" "I am learning." Adrian took her hand gently. "Tell me about her. Tell me everything I should have asked years ago." Celeste's eyes filled with tears. But she began to speak, about her mother's garden, her mother's laugh, the chocolate chip pancakes every Sunday morning. And Adrian listened, truly listened, for the first time in their marriage. It was not forgiveness. It was not reconciliation, but it was a step toward something that might become both. 2 weeks of tentative progress shattered when Celeste found photographs on Adrian's phone, a business dinner where a beautiful associate draped herself across his arm, laughing at some private joke. "Nothing happened," Adrian insisted desperately. "Victoria is aggressive with everyone. I should have stopped her. But you did not." Celeste's voice was terrifyingly calm. "Because you did not think about me. You never think about me." She walked to their closet, pulling down luggage with determined efficiency. "What are you doing?" Adrian followed, panic rising. Leaving. She began folding clothes with mechanical precision. I told myself I could try again, believe your promises. But I cannot keep waiting for a man who only remembers I exist when someone else threatens his ownership. This is not about ownership, it is entirely about ownership. Celeste whirled to face him, years of suppressed rage finally erupting. You ignored me until another man sent a gift. You only visited my mother's grave because Damien told you I go alone. Every change you have made has been reaction, not genuine desire to know me. She threw a dress into the suitcase with violent force. I am not a possession to be reclaimed when someone else shows interest. I am a person you married and then systematically abandoned. I cannot live like this anymore, Adrian. I am dying in this beautiful prison. Adrian grabbed her arms, pulling her close. Do not leave. Please, Celeste. I know I have failed you, you have destroyed me. Her voice cracked. Do you understand that? You took a woman who believed in love and beauty and possibilities, and you made her feel worthless. Invisible. Unlovable. You are not unlovable. Tears streamed down his face, something Celeste had never witnessed in 8 years of marriage. You are the most lovable person I have ever known. I was terrified of that. Celeste froze, stunned by his tears. What? Adrian released her, backing away, running hands through disheveled hair. My father never showed emotion. He said feelings were weakness, that successful men maintain control at all costs. When my mother died, he did not cry at the funeral. He told me that loving people makes you vulnerable, and vulnerability destroys empires. He sank onto their bed, shoulders bowed with exhausted honesty. When I fell in love with you, it terrified me. You made me feel things I had trained myself to suppress. So I did what my father taught, I built walls, created distance, protected myself from the vulnerability of loving you too much. Celeste stood motionless, suitcase forgotten. Jealousy, possessiveness, and something that looked almost like fear. Celeste stood slowly, holding his gaze. Something shifted inside her, a tiny flame of anger she had suppressed for far too long. Damien was my friend. He saw me as a person when we were young. She paused, letting the implication land. It has been a very long time since anyone looked at me the way he captured in that painting. Adrian's expression flickered. For one moment, vulnerability cracked through his controlled facade. Then it vanished, replaced by cold fury. You will not accept gifts from other men. His voice dropped dangerously low. You are my wife. Celeste felt something break free inside her, years of silence, of accommodation, of making herself small to avoid his indifference. Am I? She stepped closer, emboldened by his sudden attention. Because you have not treated me like your wife in 3 years. You have treated me like a painting on your wall, something pretty that requires no maintenance or consideration. Adrian grabbed her arm, pulling her close enough to feel his breath on her skin. His grip was firm but not painful, his eyes searching her face with desperate intensity. You are mine, Celeste. Then act like it. Her whisper trembled with years of accumulated longing. See me. Just once, Adrian. Actually see me. Their faces hovered inches apart, tension crackling between them like approaching storm. Celeste's heart pounded against her ribs. This was the closest they had been in years, his cologne flooding her senses, his heat radiating through expensive fabric. Adrian's grip softened. His thumb traced her arm unconsciously, the first tender touch in longer than she could remember. Then his phone buzzed insistently. The spell shattered. Adrian released her, stepping back with visible effort. We are not finished discussing this. He strode out without another word, already answering his phone, his wife forgotten once again. But something had changed. Celeste had seen it in his eyes, jealousy, want, fear. Damien's gift had accomplished what 3 years of quiet suffering could not. Adrien Morrow had finally noticed his wife existed. And Celeste was no longer certain she wanted his attention anymore. Adrien could not sleep. The portrait haunted him, Celeste's radiant face captured by another man's hands, another man's devotion. He found himself standing before it at 3 in the morning, studying brushstrokes that revealed intimate knowledge of his wife's features. Damien Corso had memorized the curve of her smile, the light in her eyes, details Adrien had stopped noticing years ago. When had Celeste's eyes lost that brightness? When had her smile become rare and guarded? The questions tormented him. Unable to resist, Adrien searched through Celeste's sitting room while she slept. In a drawer, he discovered a ribbon-bound stack of letters, months of correspondence from Damien. His hands shook as he read words that should have come from a husband. You were always too extraordinary for ordinary life. I hope whoever shares your days recognizes that miracle. Your letters remind me why I paint, to capture beauty that words cannot contain. That if circumstances were different, I would have fought for you. I still would. Jealousy burned through Adrien like acid. This artist had been nurturing emotional intimacy with his wife while Adrien buried himself in spreadsheets and conference calls. Damien knew about Celeste's abandoned dreams of opening an art gallery. He knew about her loneliness, her feeling of invisibility, her quiet desperation. Adrien knew none of these things. He had never asked. The realization shattered something inside him. He had married an extraordinary woman and systematically ignored her into becoming a shadow. Another man had seen her worth when Adrien had been blind. Morning found him waiting in the breakfast room, something he had not done in years. Celeste appeared in a silk robe, freezing when she saw him. We need to talk. Adrien's voice was rough from sleepless hours. Celeste's expression hardened when she noticed the letters in his hand. You went through my things. You have been corresponding with him for 8 months. Adrien stood, unable to contain restless energy. Sharing thoughts, feelings, pieces of yourself. With another man. Sharing with someone who actually listens. Celeste's voice cracked with years of suppressed pain. Do you even know my favorite book? My favorite flower? What I dream about when I close my eyes? Adrien opened his mouth to answer. Nothing came. Exactly. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Damien remembers that I wanted to open a gallery featuring emerging artists. He remembers that I love peonies and thunderstorms and burnt orange sunsets. He remembers my mother's name, my grandmother's garden, the poem I recited at our high school graduation. She stepped closer, anger and grief pouring out after years of silence. You forgot I existed, Adrien. You come home to an empty bed because you